Morning, everybody.
Sanje Choda Soja Tonala Chanjo Bado Dane Jaso Chen Daji Chuten Jewe Tola Sanje Sanje Gobara Sanje Choda Soja Tonala Bado Dane Jaso Chen Daji Chuten Jewe Tola Sanje Sanje Gobara Sanje Choda Soja Dayantan Gade Gade Bodhi Swaha Dayantan Bodhi Swaha Dayantan Bodhi Swaha Ola Sutaka Simja Tamjego to Toja Lana Majiba Sanje Kumar Moja Chineja Tumarcha. Teacher to any bad judges and Lavjan switch to the Nova Lawale, Shenko, Shibale, Togo, Toba, Tojo Manoa Kotu, and Kasupawa Dakaja. Judges and Lavjashun Kiamutawa and Juju Shun the Nagi, sometimes Motaja.
So we begin, of course, by setting our motivation as usual, our motivation to do whatever we possibly can to attain the peerless state of enlightenment in order to be of maximum benefit to all living beings. We know that in order to attain such a state, we must be able to establish the causes, and we must be able to actually understand what is necessary to do, to accomplish in order to attain such a state. To do that in turn, we need to kind of have an understanding. We need to be able to rely on a reliable source, unmistakable source or text from which we can gain those instructions. And so it is with this in mind that we come this morning at this time to listen to a talk from a text called The Bodhisattva's Way of Life by the great Master Shantideva.
That Gora gets Lama Yimbala Naba and Toba Shaja Toba and Casade Takaja Shaja Chani and Yanyakatan Duzaka Lusa Naba. And yes, and Yanyak Kula Chugu Mumega Dodger saw what I did was show you something what the Kumasha.
And as usual, also, we established the visualization in the space in front of us. The one who is actually in nature, my own guru, in aspect here, the figure of Shakyamuni Buddha, who is skilled in means, greatly compassionate, is dressed in the saffron robes of a monk, 2 hands, one in the earth-touching mudra at his side, in front of him, and then the other hand holding an alms bowl filled with nectar in the meditative equipoise position.
What in the chat? Then they get any case of the Tomatuba Ombo, doing a set up a chat. A ranga tago to a rala tincher, imagine a simja tanja, Masawa member. You something what in the chat?
And then all around us are all kind of other sentient beings. And so we're very aware of that reality.
And to make any Jew Omka arm over to go home with Yigasum set up, and to go home we said to be Shing Ramjan and never Yeshiva only the Jabba Chanta, and the Yeshiva Tigeti to Bashaja to be Naba Chant and Tim, only uncle, and Chulama Chezo never let me give a weekend ticket. What in Chukubasha?
And that similarly to all sentient beings, the central figure of Shakyamuni Buddha is marked by the 3 syllables Hum. And from the hung at the heart, light rays emanate, heading into the pure realms, inviting of the wisdom beings and the empowering deities. And the wisdom beings come and dissolve into the central figure. And then the empowering deities confer the nectar of empowerment, which overflows. And from that overflow appears the figure of Akshobhya on the crown of Shakyamuni Buddha.
What did it talk and be do some Sanja Tamjagan, Danish, what did it talk and Simjala Ninja, and a Dula said and Tobashaja to Balamibe, and a Deva, Gametava, Ichigiteva, Muntuka Devala Sumata, and the Simja that Tamjago to touch about Tubal and Ketava Kumama in the Tabantu, 아니 개 고만이 받치기 삼사 아니 뒤에서도 다 준주 숑티 얘기 받치고도 고마시
And that the figure, of course, is to be seen as the embodiment of the Buddhas of all the three times of existence, and that we look towards the Buddha with that look towards the sentient beings with the mind of great compassion, recognizing the suffering of all those in the six realms of cyclic existence, and also looking towards the figure of the Buddha with that mind of faith, and with the triple aspect of faith, the pure faith, of manifest faith, and the faith of conviction. That we make our kind of resolution here too, to kind of look and really see that state of enlightenment as something that we must ourselves attain. I really must be able to attain that state from which I can then best be able to benefit sentient beings. How wonderful to be able to do that. I will be able to do that. I will kind of determined to attain such a state. Gonna need something? I'm not. Oh yeah, he's got sushi. He's got
another way. Better not sure, not get lunch. Oh yeah. What understand? Tak anja. What understand? Compassion. What understand? What? Tak anja. 지금 퇴바 다 퇴삼체베 돈다데 아니 라렌라 가이 뭐인사 왔다 간자 제는 뭐 죄송한데 그 퇴베데 제바 인베스다 퇴베 되는데 가서 라렌라 제체도 냠낸 제체도 이 sabza 왔다 전 왔다 간자 냠낸 제는 다 가자 도바샤제 퇴베 니베 공화도 토바지는 이 토바이나 아니 심제 감담에 와삼바 발라냐와 지당와시도 키게 있자 아니 지제 심제가 더 좋아진 거로 봐 지제 심제도 좋았대 봐 좋아 요거 어떤데 전 근데 인베스티게이트 고바디가 심베톤에 왔다 고바시는 센슈아 어떤데
So let's determine then that here we will be aiming to gain that wisdom through being able to learn what is necessary to be done, that wisdom gained from learning and reflection. But we must please be extremely aware that that is the purpose of which is to put it into practice, to integrate that into our lives. And this is really what has been very much advised by J. Rinpoche, Lama Tsongkhapa himself, that whatever is learned and reflected upon is thereafter to be put into practice, to integrate into the life. So that's very, very important. To understand it, to be able to attain such a goal as enlightenment, which from that point of view, one is aware of all of the different aspirations and dispositions and personalities of all the sentient beings, what karma has led them to this point and so on, and that it gives one the possibility of being able to really benefit them, precisely, indefinitely. And so it's so important that we kind of recognize that in order to attain that state, we really need to be able to integrate all of what we hear and reflect upon.
말아서 레당보하게 심쟁글 펜베 된주스다 그저 스타 메딩 스타피나 지금 사야메가 사야 투에메가 투에 나디글 메 텐데도로 보고 제도 거와 딜레 아니 걔네 타바다 탐제 캠발 펜토스 뱀미스 또 좀도 봐서르치다 디모도 장주 선바 속에 아니 예세 없는데 두두요만 다 타치바 두두고다 산제래 아니 디게 거바심베 토네 거바심베 토네 아니 지가소르다 산제 고마주베리 개체부 차디고 여봐 개체부 차디고 여라 지금 어제 페버 주스도 네발 메데 아니 지금 사야메 사야데 대사메 대사 대삼 전에도 먼저 탐해가 두두어 먹고 여봐 다 타바다 탐제 캠에 고마르고 시간도 다 권내줄로 가지고 동네 탐제 때 대화 탐제 때문에 아니 지 고마르고 얘기다 페버 주 얘기 어다디 레 당보 베테 미시바 소르치다 미시베 소르지 다 장주가 셈게 셈베 돈에 직제도나 다 제버리면도 미시베 소르 다 산제기 다 간자지게 nangze ka semje ko tola semje tola ma jwa che yo ma ta nangze ka semje ko tola cha du to.
And so this is to kind of make that distinction to know really the reality of where we are as beginners. That when we talk about benefiting all sentient beings, what does it really mean for us? We really need to understand our limitations. That perhaps we have the capacity to help people who are sick by giving medicine or some care. Those who have no food, to give them food. Those who have nothing to drink, to give them drink or a place to stay even. But beyond that, how much benefit can we really give? Especially when it comes to wanting to lead sentient beings to that omniscient state of enlightenment. And I think we're extremely limited in that sense, and we have to recognize that at the outset as well, and that to recognize that from the point of view of a bodhisattva, a bodhisattva is whose goal is to relieve all sentient beings of all suffering and to establish all sentient beings in all happiness, and that understands that really understands that they're in order to achieve that, the only goal is enlightenment. So they're really much more focused and much more, therefore, have much more breadth of benefit to give to all sentient beings from that point of view. And of course, that point of view is only established in those who have the mind of enlightenment, have generated that mind of enlightenment, where it becomes now something of second nature, where it comes to being able to benefit, especially to that which leads to that state of enlightenment, where one is able to spontaneously and automatically benefit all.
다 가서 이제 잠도 돼 봐 가서 니가 장주가 semwe suma sig들베 들봐
아니 also one some red
다들 참 나는 그래 다 간제 니가 장주가 sem다 간제 다 장주가 semwe su마들 som차 아니 뭐왜 예와 아니 예와 배셔봐 아니 민주니게서 피
And so we had stopped at a point in the text just after verse number 14, where we're looking at that outline where it says the recognition of the mind of enlightenment. And this has three subheadings. One is the divisions in terms of the nature of the mind, and then an explanation through example of those divisions, and then an explanation of the particular benefits relating to both the aspiring and engaging minds of enlightenment. So here, just to point out as well that when we talk about the divisions of the mind of enlightenment, there are divisions of like what is called conventional mind of enlightenment and ultimate mind of enlightenment. What follows in the next verses is a discussion of those divisions within the former, that is conventional mind of enlightenment or relative mind of enlightenment. And so with that in mind, then we look at verse number 15, which says, in brief, the awakening mind should be understood to be of two types: the mind that aspires to awaken and the mind that ventures to do so. So here it's saying that looking into the nature of the mind of enlightenment, it has these, in brief, it has these two aspects that first of all, focusing on the wishing element or aspiring element to generate that mind of enlightenment, and then looking at the actual engaging or venturing mind of enlightenment, focusing on that. These are these two elements or these two aspects.
자주가 셈 될 거베 코네 도트바이나 나바니 쉐마차데스 나바니차 자주라 미베 미베 셈제시다 셈제 그 자주라 미베서 미베 셈제 다네 자주라 주베 주 가서 미베서 주베 셈니스 니노시 오자 예수 예배 치료서다 니유스 어떤 점도 간제다 가서도 장주로 명바 딱 간제제 장주로 명바 미과 명바 직다 아니 주바다 디 장주디 토베체도 쥐바를 주겠습니 로하다 로하 직 가서도 제불을 믿되기도 직 줄을 믿되기도 주 가서 교체소 파지 줄을 믿네 아니 주바냐면 직 다 당보디 가서 넘바 셈제데 제불을 믿 다디 주바 셈제 제부디 토베 체도 남라 주바스거다 토베 체도 다 가서 남네 지에들 믿되겠다 니용도 어딘다 나만 니여서 소대도 어디.
So a way of reading this also is that these two aspects of the mind of enlightenment, where it talks about the one which is focused on the wishing or aspiring element of the mind of enlightenment, this could be referred to as the mind focused on the result. And so it's kind of this kind of saying, thinking of enlightenment, thinking of wishing or aspiring to attain that state of enlightenment. Whereas the second of these, the mind focused on the entering into or engaging in the generation of the mind. This is more likely focused on the causal side. So, for example, this would be the mind that takes us into the practice of the six perfections, etc. And so this is establishing the actual causes to attain that result.
다 니바 가서다 예와 셰바들라 다 가제제 예와 셰바들라 셰바네 자왈레 조아드다 조아이 지다 셰바다 대시 케베데니게 제다르 셰바다 디 케바가르 그르 셰고레스 다 자와디 데오도.
So the second of these outlines was an explanation of the differences between these two in terms of an example. And so here verse number 16 states, as is understood by the distinction between aspiring to and actually going. So the wise understand in turn the distinction between these two.
조에 자와 마심베 유데 조와 자와 냐바 조와 되베 로티 오다 조 로티 베티나 신체 안 조에 자와 심베 다 심바도 고츠니 심베 뒤게 유데 조와 자와 냐베 디 뒤게다 조와 자와 냐바도 지고 요다 있네 그니리 켜봐요다 직 자외 심바도 직 마심베 켜봐요도 냐베서 르 제자 니소 유데 조와 냐베 로 송바 이나야 조에 자와 신다 마싱기 켜봐요바 제달 셰버차서 제달 디나신자 하고 같이 그래서 배대신도 개베 면주 다 뭐바치 셈제도 주고 셈제 되니게 제달 림바시도 셰버죠 왔다 디니 개발 되듯이 셰버치 그래서.
And so here the example of the one is thinking of going to a certain country or a certain place prior to setting out on that journey. And then the other is having the same thought of going to that place, that country, but already having started the journey. So this is the difference between the two. So in terms of the thought to reach a certain place, there's no difference. They're similar in that respect. But here, it's whether one is actually set out on that journey or not is the distinction between the two. And so this example then, just like this example, is that saying that in the verse, so the wise understand in turn the distinction between these two of aspiring and engaging mind of enlightenment. And so this is how they understand this.
Shantideva Sanja Toba Jawa Nambes Sems Sungbal Sems Sungbala Juba Namlengi Javi Simbala De Migobata Della De Gobata Javi Simbala Debata Mituba Della De also Gobe Keba Ni Yuba Sheba Jawa so Takanja what the Takanja member Simja Sigante and 다가자 심제 탐제가 돈도 안에 산제 고바 마도나 탐도 토바 지구도 삼사다디 토바 진도고 로 답비다 보시께서는 몇 심제서라 다 된데 토베 되는데 다 된데 그 된데 톰도 깨봐서 많이 맞잖아 다디 토발라 안 주가rel라고도 어다 제조 바지 졸라고도 라발라 안 고소한테 안 주겠어 어제 주버 심제가 다 냠내들 랭고와 어떻게
And so another meaning is here that that in terms of the mind aspiring or the mind bent on attaining the state of enlightenment, there is no distinction between these two minds. But in terms of, say, one is saying that that doesn't as yet see or the necessity of engaging in the certain practices of certain behaviors and all that in order to attain that state, whereas the other sees that as absolutely necessary. And this is one way of making that distinction as well. But it must be understood that, for example, if one has generated the aspiring mind of enlightenment, that nonetheless that one has seen the kind of necessity of attaining enlightenment in order to be a benefit to all sentient beings, because one is saying that really there is no choice but to attain enlightenment in order to really fulfill the aspiration to benefit all sentient beings. So it's a very important stage, it's a very important mind to generate. And from that sort of inspirational realization comes then the question of, okay, what are the causes that I need to establish then in order to attain that state of enlightenment? And of course, that leads then to engaging mind of enlightenment, where one engages in the practices of the six perfections, etc.
면세기 편유 셔바도 죽생기 편유 셔바 워셔다 니제 아버도 면세기 셔바 편유 셔바다 장주 멤버 셈레니 코제티브 쳐와 중스 가서 최종 양사 제다 주베 셈신도 손나 주자 중앙 민스.
And so now we come to a third outline, which is the explanation of the difference in terms of the benefits relating to both the aspiring and engaging minds of enlightenment. And so naturally enough, this has two subheadings. One is the benefits of the aspiring mind of enlightenment, and one is the benefits of the engaging mind of enlightenment. And so the first of these is dealt with in verse number 17, where it says, although great fruits occur in cyclic existence from the mind that aspires to awaken, as an uninterrupted flow of merit does not ensue as it does with the venturing mind.
가수로 다 간제 개와 두바 된속에 폐 랍치보다 연구 열때 얘네 대삼 연구 버스 다 셈께네 개와 두바에는 폐 랍치가 연구 열에 근데 연자 자주 멤버 셈께 받잖아 아니 저 코알라 네베 세장 아니 개베세기 민토에 다 대자 마세 아니 저 가수래 There's a master Tribuchawata, Quaset Tribuchawas, the Takaja, and the chicken and the Sungabel household that they can. And the chicken Sambala Soma Tendeli Ken, and the chicken Caso de Chicasota, Twinjeta, to get the Pims Puta, we are putting a yacht. Yena ya, Chube Sem Kevan Shinke, and pay Zotam Nebat. Zotam Neba, and Chicaso de Ta, Chicaso de Zotam Neba, some Maseta, Sonam, what that Zotam Neba, and the Puta, what do you maris? Maybe assembly pay trouble your day, pay trouble you are the Taka Caso de Chube Sem Kevan, and they could put up with your maris. What me toba so, Debu Chumbo Joya, Debu Chumbo and the younger. Narazu, when the another Debu switch over your Yena young, me think you Casada Joina, Chube Assembly as son of Guncha. Parmacha Joa Shindu, and music with the Yugo Maras to a Mino Sheba. Chida the Yam don't let it so chico, yet
So I think here really that from the point of view of the benefits relating to the aspiring mind of enlightenment, that even while we are still within cyclic existence, there's tremendous benefits to be accrued, such as we attain that sort of like a reputation or name of being a child of the conquerors, someone who is definitely on the path. And that tremendous benefits, such as we can have access to form realm absorptions and so on, and meditative concentrations. That there just tremendous benefits to be attained from just the genuine generation of the aspiring mind of enlightenment. But it does not compare to the benefits, the unbroken stream of merit that is available to somebody who has generated the engaging mind of enlightenment. And so it's kind of like saying, okay, on the one hand, there's tremendous benefit, and especially compared to what's within our capacity in terms of benefits and so on. It's just extraordinary, the benefits available to somebody who has the aspiring mind of enlightenment. But it still is incomparable to somebody who has actually engaged with that, has the engaging mind of
enlightenment. And it Debel Hala Sobege, and a bear, Tunja Puzun Sowa Yotic, what that the Negi Kawal Lenepe, Chicasora, Tunja Puzun Sowa, she was the Yogudes, because of the Jubes and Major, because of the member sometimes Kiva Yena Yang, or the negative part to me about Yogudes, I can sort you and then so go to the table part to me about Yogudes. That do you do, and that Jobal Lava in that did take Marvatam. University Takacha, Lacho, you go to Subuyor. What I can say, Roapena Garazo me meeting along Garazo meeting al Samotata, Garazo Campanoye, Mortanoye, and it said the Tunga Church, the meeting, and Pekale, never shoes to Yorba. In a Gazette Java Yimba Yinaya, that said in a Tunga Summit to kind to do. Same Sambochi Kava and the same jet, something to Sunday come out to be. Matuna Tamata, you and their toy go the same day, this Kavayina, and the Jebu Patu Mebata. What that Jebu Tanda, Teddy Ketchum single letter, that Jebu, that Bumjurgima. Mumjurguma, and the Java, which is Sanjay Julia Trotty Yorilla, there's a masse, call and never rely, and the Mila Kava and Mipe Kasuda, and the 20 persons of a year take. And then you take a top you take a Onja you take a and the chicken lega sandwich and a jet to a never shoot you take it. What are the 20 part of never you and there was a Halakaba high none a city chair, never chair. Cousin Taiba, my guest, simply going to same Kiva Yinsa could never send a meter you take it. To get the yun, something was oh, Jabala Malamata, same Kiva some the caripant over there, some such Narazu Dandagi. Garazu Danda Tame now at the Chadi. Did some remote was same Kiba same Kine, and it did you part of me about to do what was watchable. Think one matter was the two other women. Rapena was a Chicago the 제가 미 교부지 여바이나 대 교부지 여바이나 아니 교부들라 아니 디 야고 디 동네에 저는 치마루 그 강에 들렸으나 치마루 삼라타 되면 갑자기 때 콜라 마브릭 소주 여봐야 딜레 콜라 고무 가지 째자면 콜라 팬차 이거 소주 여래 때 얘네 샘 상보대 개발을 때네 아니 소속의 손은 빠도 왜 사기도 아니 다가 장에 좀 마음 발라 샘 상보대 밑에 때네 개발 인사 마음 발라 미디 미지지가 좋아 말이야 그 사람들 보다 개발된 거다 마음 발라 야 지금 최고 돈에 편 터트베 때 요것도 평바 시바된데 좀더 대화지 시작이도 와 보다 뒤쪽가 샘 상보가 뉴바치래도 되게 먼저 시바체 야 맞아 sometimes practical 만 보셔도 어때 그때 뭐다 가르페가 되게 잠래보다 샘 뉴바스 샘 상비 뉴바스 시부지래도 와 직들 니들 다다 배나 소소라 지금 여바 있네 제 마도와 지금 두와 제 마도와데 가서래 제 지금 여바 있네 제 마도와 지도와 뒤에 가서 화다 피게 돼 저와 야고 맞종다로 와 거의 저와 야고 맞종다로 와 다디 저와지 샤나 마우발 제 투와 용해다 펜 토투와 용해다 각 프랙티컬 돈에 펜 토투와 용해다 야 리치랑 어디도 리치랑 어디 강에 샤면에 콜라 로바 제 투고도 제 투고도 와 제 두고도 와. 그래서 과연 예마그 제와지 토네. 레그 제와지 토네 용 되기도. 되게 그거 좀때 처음 번에 삼렀다나.
So that when we talk about, what's available in terms of benefits of generating the aspiring mind of enlightenment, we shouldn't underestimate these benefits, because they are all of that which is really conducive to our being able to further ourselves on the path to enlightenment. And so you're talking about here like very powerful kind of conducive conditions, such as finding oneself in a very conducive state of living, that one has a far more capacity than, say, the beings in the desire realm, or desire realm deities, and desire realm deities, and that we have like the kind of like all of the what would be regarded as great conducive conditions, maybe influence, maybe wealth, maybe a position in society, all of these kind of like basic conditions, the underlying conditions for a very conducive spiritual lifestyle. And so we need that, and that's all part of the benefits that can be available to us, generating the mind of aspiring aspiring mind of enlightenment. And so it's kind of like, in compared to what's available to us now and our capacity now, it's 100,000 times more kind of beneficial in that sense. And so here, from a human point of view, if we look at what's available to us, we may be in a situation where we have great kind of like the kind of like great conducive conditions for practicing in terms of power, influence, money, and so on, and even greater than maybe what's available in the desire realm, celestial realm, but we are not engaging in these activities, and we haven't really generated the mindset of being able to of not only the willingness to, but the means or the method of being able to benefit others so much. And so this is kind of saying, people who say, why don't we just kind of be practical and just give, what we can? Sure, that's wonderful, but we have to kind of generate that kind of that attitude of generosity, and that's done within the developing of the mind of enlightenment, the aspiring mind of enlightenment. And so that's kind of like saying, we are not just cognizant of the needs of other living beings right now, but we are very much concerned with making meaningful connection with all those sentient beings. And so it's kind of saying this is a kind of a much bigger mindset, much more far-reaching aspiration, because here it's kind of saying it's kind of like not just thinking how wonderful it would be if all the poor people were able to eradicate poverty, and they would have enough. But it's kind of laying down kind of the mindset that is making that connection with all those sentient beings, understanding that from life to life to life we will be meeting other sentient beings again, and that we can make a Dharma connection with them perhaps in the future, so that will really speed up their progress on the path itself, and thinking of the actual power within this, the selflessness of this mind of enlightenment, that really kind of embracing that far-reaching effect, and that's saying that now, we may be in a position, we maybe have found that to our own cost many times, where we might be in a position to help, but we are unable to help, unable to give to those who really require our assistance, because we haven't made that connection, that karmic connection. And so that becomes really important when we're moving our living in harmony with the aspiring mind of enlightenment. And that it's about the making of these connections with others. And we can see how others, aside from ourselves, are in maybe even a less advantageous position than ourselves, and yet are able to be of more benefit because of the connections they have made in previous lives. And so it's kind of important to understand the generation of the aspiring mind of enlightenment in this kind of context. And of course, without, it hardly goes without saying that the engaging mind of enlightenment will not arise without the prior generation of the aspiring mind of enlightenment.
Tatu devo sanje komade membe semgela tuwa membe sem tende kematona jugwe semla malona sanje devo top tugumeto ani ta geje mo shibu shade to dinangju je chone remondo.
And so we see, as I pointed out before, that the aspiring mind of enlightenment is focused on the result, the attainment of enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And the engaging mind of enlightenment is focused on the cause. Of what are the causes then to actually bring about that result? But as we can see, if we don't see the result, if we don't see the goal that we're aiming for, why would we bother, establishing the causes to attain that goal? So you can see how these two minds actually work in tandem. They are both essential. They are both kind of like, very important, that the aspiring mind of enlightenment really establishes the result in our mind, that we can see that, we can aspire to attain that. And that then, of course, naturally pushes us towards generating the causes to bring that about through the engaging mind of enlightenment.
What today is that? Tadang also let on board, Narazo let on board, let on board, member simjite, Peter was get mota. Take care of that, and it's in it, and it should be a simila, and a young to a utility. Yoke, what are the days are, and it's member simke, and you need to get Shimba in a tillet in a jubesem with tillet in a top of the subject about Togo. That I get you the corner, Yoel, Hata, Chiji, Togana, that Korean David in there, and it took 20 puzzles of your daddy suya. 샘케베 미조데 가서 산제 고마 토에르메티 코알라 디지 주에도 말이 이내야 다다 산제 고마 마토게 바다들라 이마 이내야 춘제 부족 저와요 춘제 부족 저와 이내 추트베 추다 저가서데 추 줍시나 아니 추 랍차 줍투고 왔다 추 줍마시나 다가르베 줍시나 랍차 줍투고 그래 어다 들리 케베 요래 아니 라도도 데 가서데 죽샘께 와라 팽게도 틀라데나 산제 고발 팽게 따디가 윤데르 와 너 말씀제 윤데르 와다 좋아 데 계절 와다
Kechu sana kechu the
계절
kechu
윤데
the kind of younger some kind of the tama the
디 계절 그래서 답변은
Mumbai semgi kechu the
멤버셈 다 되게 멤버셈 들라테네 아니 지 다데 빼잖아 요즘 멤버셈 들라테네 다 간제 지 가서데 하다 되게 튕게 부수 저와 용거래서 수고도 왔다 되고서 다 내가 개배제로 와 얘네야 들라테네 주배셈 계기도 와 들라테네 산제 산제 라팔로 것도 산제 고바도 왔다디 되게 개체 뭐 수련도 왔다.
So here as beginners and recognizing ourselves as beginners, we begin with the generation of the aspiring mind of enlightenment, and thereafter then once we have generated that, then we can fulfill the engaging mind of enlightenment. So this is why they're placed in kind of order like that, as it were. And so it kind of like that here, once we have established the mind of enlightenment, the aspiring mind of enlightenment, then that pushes us towards establishing the causes to attain liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment, of course, that are the results of the causes laid down by the engaging mind of enlightenment. So here, to kind of see ourselves in cyclic existence, to recognize the conducive conditions that we have in cyclic existence, and it's kind of really, it's sort of like recalibrating our motivations, really. So when we have the generation of the aspiring mind of enlightenment in focus, then we're no longer obsessed with the happiness available in cyclic existence. So we're already thinking beyond cyclic existence and liberation. And so it's kind of like understanding that first comes the generation of the aspiring mind of enlightenment, and then the engaging mind of enlightenment, and then it's full steam ahead to enlightenment itself. And that this is the way it works. And so it's kind of like here, and to recognize that, as we pointed out, that with the generation of the aspiring mind of enlightenment come these wonderfully conducive, powerful benefits and conditions that kind of like, it's kind of thereafter an inevitability to be able to use them then to engage and to generate that engaging mind of enlightenment.
다지다 주베 셈레 소남 균차버 균차 bar 마체바 중화신도 다 주베 셈 개바나 면셈 제서 중화니 면서 면셈과 다 디나시 요거 말이에스 뭐다 디나시 요거 말이에스
And so I'd like to finish that verse saying that as wonderful and as conducive are the powerful conditions that arise with the generation of the aspiring mind of enlightenment, that continuous generation of continuous accruing of positive merit does not arise, because that's only available to one who has the engaging mind of enlightenment.
다 니바 주선제 평균에서 자왈래 간에 손데 셈제 감 타예 rabdo 주외치 미도 바이 셈제소 셈데 양다 랑주바 데네 손데 니로 컴 밤에 교장 손남쇼 주메 체버 도마시 나가냐바 rabdo 총사.
We are then looking at verse number 18 and 19 and to point out the benefits of the engaging mind of enlightenment. And so these read, "And for him who has perfectly seized this mind, with the thought never to turn away from totally liberating the infinite forms of life. From that time hence, even while asleep or unconcerned, a force of merit equal to the sky will perpetually ensue.
다 칸에 손대서 다 간제 주베서 람바데나 손데 셈제바네 손데 아니 셈제 감 타예 봐 제시 그래서 타예 와서 시시다 시바 코아 시와 시시 시바 다 시바 코아제 아니 시와 아니 가서다 다 가자제 로와도 라니 집고 시비 되니 그 로케다 다 타바삼 토바 시베타 레라 타니라 타와 타니 rabdu juwe chedo anu kowa jise matonge pado ta kowa matonge pado shendun le mitokbe semje semje ne ta jube semje yang da wa langwa juba tene sonda ta tene sonda ane ta de ni lokam ane cheka sa ta ka ja ni lokam这raru wa so pa me ba ta ka ja ce zemo ta de ying de be kap 저 밤에 뭐 교장 아니 소남 예수 규미체바 도마식 다자 남과다 냠바 rab도 중세 다 남과다 타타야 봐 중국에서 rab도 중화 이노시 손자 고자.
So here, describing the benefits of the engaging mind of enlightenment is describing the kind of person who has developed that mind, who have, for him or her, who has perfectly seized this mind, who have engaged in that mind. So they have focused on the liberation of all sentient beings from all the, whether within cyclic existence or nirvana. That they want to completely liberate them. Now, they will not forsake that goal until cyclic existence is emptied. In other words, they will never turn away from sentient beings until cyclic existence is emptied. Now, this engaging mind of enlightenment, and this one who's perfectly practicing this engaging mind of enlightenment, then will have this continuous stream of merit ensuing for them, describing as equal to the sky, a force of merit equal to the sky, whether they are sleeping or in play or lacking in some sort of conscientiousness. It doesn't matter. That this is going to continue, this merit continue unbroken.
다 줘발라 람네 다 간제 랑게 룽아 예숨도 다 간제 셈젠라 푸네 다 간제 셈젠라 푸네 다 셈제가 되어주게도 다 지금 좀네 다 간제 쳐서 빠져 돌아 다 두에 뭐고 실라 수바 다 되다 라베더와 왔다 뒤자 왔다 무슨 거요 왔다 다 되나 되나 수바 다 표현되다 중에 좀 센스 다 표현되다 용에 왔다 되는 규메체와 나가다 냐바죠 오다 배우 그렇다 어디르자 이노 샤고다 수바 대다 표현되다 중에 존재내서 롱거바다 리베토바 오사 담보네 자왈레스 데니 테바 당제바 라산진의 슈발레 매매 심제 된지치 대신 샤바니기 송사.
So this engaging mind of enlightenment is to kind of clarify how we have, at this point now, completely offered all we have to benefit sentient beings, to our perfecting all the trainings on the 6 perfections, and the 4 means of accumulating disciples, etc. We are fully committed to those means of establishing the causes to attain the state of enlightenment. In order to be of maximum benefit. It's already, we've offered everything we have towards that goal. And that, and then the third of the outlines that were at the beginning, the reasoning behind why such benefits arise in this way. And that this is established, this is explained in 2 verses, several verses, I must say. The first subheading for this is how this is explained through scripture, and secondly, how it is established through reasoning. And so the first of these is verse number 20, where it says, "For the sake of those inclined toward the lesser vehicle, this was logically asserted by the Tathagata himself in the sutra requested by Subahu." And so it's explained in this way that the benefits of the engaging mind of enlightenment are correctly established because they have been related in the sutra requested by Subahu. And that in that sutra, those gone to bliss, the Buddhas, have established that in order to dissuade those who have an inclination towards the hearer vehicle enlightenment, to have to kind of dissuade them and to kind of establish them on the Mahayana vehicle. This was stated.
but the lam de shuna ya we de de lam de jaba sa mai ba ja dila ani che kaso la ta wo shu jusumne ta hamba tubne ani che kaso la ta che lam la juk tu gen te ta nyara la ma ju che ne te ba chbo la ju na ni gyogir wa ta sa ju chigir wa ta wa ta de de ke ba ta di ba yin za ko che kaso de ta ge chbo yin ba yin za ani ta de kaso de 다 데데기 자왈 슈에기 아니 지가서다 슈나 아니 다지 슈투고여나 다 슈고에서다 람데 도진 나고서봐 어떻게
And so referring to the hearer vehicle practitioners and the solitary realizer practitioners who have their what's called their path to enlightenment, their particular path to enlightenment. For those who are striving towards that enlightenment, then there's one type that said that there is no way they can be deviate from that path. They will continue towards that hearer vehicle enlightenment or that solitary realizer vehicle enlightenment. But said that there's one type who can be dissuaded from doing so, who can be turned, as it were, from continuing on that path. And it's here to kind of say that for those who have that kind of inclination, that the kind of the benefits of, say, the mind of enlightenment can be presented to them, and they might say, oh, well, this is a logical kind of a preference to be able to follow. And so here, with the talking about those gone to bliss into different sutra kind of citations, have seen it as so important that they would present this possibility to those who are persuadable from the hearer vehicle, solitary realizer vehicles.
그래. 다가저 타도 대바 숨도 좋아. 타도 대바 찍도 좋아다. 녀랑게 장주도에 타도디 산제 람라 티에쳐도 이내다 두자 컴 리카셰라 아니디 녀랑게 람도 마슈바 이나 대바 침베 람라 슈두고 요 말에. 거다 지금 코라 가서다 지금 개방을 비 바차다 뭐비 온거 왔다. 대대 온 개바도 녀랑 람라 마슈나 아니 다 릭직 야 가서 내가 남라 최대와 이바 이나야 야 그거 가서 지금 튕겨다고 서로 가서 다 지금 인데 지금 대화 집에 남게 튕겨지 중앙이나 라와 유게 그렇지 와. 다 되게 야 봐도 대화 집에 남라 주도 봐 이나 그 남사주 지그러 와. 내가 차요라. 다 가자 다 되게 좋아이나 고바차다 랍차 요바데 다 가자 수고 여러 다 배유 수고 여러 봐. 배유 수고 여러 어디래. 가서 뭐 고바 좋아데 타바나 타와 쌈 말에 가서나 가서데 간데 그거 좋아돼 심지어도 다 주바 주베 체도래 심지어도 다 주바 주베 체도 아니 저게 가서데 다 간자 심지어도 다 주바 주발라 아니 택바 쳔벨 남라 마슈바 탑매게지 아니 택바 쳔벨 남라 슈바라 자주고 세마지바 탑매게지 잡으러 와 내가 뒤 찾더라 호텔
And so also to understand that this sort of verse falls into the kind of a concept that there is ultimately only one vehicle, that all other vehicles must be subsumed into the one vehicle. And that here, so for those who we're referring to here, those on the hearer vehicle or the solitary realizer vehicle. Now, one category of practitioner there may have very powerful imprints such that they must continue on that path. They cannot go onto any other path. And that, but some, because of particular conditions in their lives or the opportunity they have, you see the logic relating to the Mahayana vehicle, where there's kind of more meaning for them, more blessing and more kind of benefits and so on, that they choose to enter into the Mahayana vehicle, and that means they're kind of like progressing in their practice, because ultimately it's kind of pointing to the fact that the practitioner, regardless, must come around to the point of view where they are seeing how they must benefit all sentient beings. And how they fulfill that, then they will see that I've got to enter the path that leads to the state from which I can fulfill that aspiration, that motivation.
다 니베 리베 두발라 니제 면섬 레스 페유 그래서 면섬 레 페유 토베 그래서 토바 테바다 죽선레 아니 페유 토바 테바 오사 당볼라시 겨 두베서 제레 타입의 표현체와 로다 타입의 표현체와체 대에서 합의 펜스 그래서 그 펜스 시험해봐 심전납라 덴트의 펜스 라운드도야 맞게봐 아니 죽도돼 나봐 뭐지 시체.
So the following on that, then we've just looked at establishing the points previously from scripture. Now we're looking at then establishing them through reasoning. And so this outline has 4 subheadings, and one is looking at the correctness of the benefits attained through the aspiring mind of enlightenment. The second subheading is the correctness of the benefits attained through the engaging mind of enlightenment. Thirdly, with regard to that first, that is the benefits relating to attaining the benefits of the aspiring mind of enlightenment, it has a further 4 subheadings. And this is showing the great benefits because of the limitless actions of engaging in virtue. And the second is that there is no more beneficial mind. Thirdly, yes, that if one has not even generated or thought of this mind, this beneficial mind in relation to oneself, then one will not be able to generate it in relation to all sentient beings. And the fourth is a praise in conclusion.
다 간제 지금 면셈 될라 약 로다 같이 저 단다들 가서래 면셈래 페유토베 토바 테바셔 면셈래 포유 가르가 토부여 버데 안디 테바 임바디 셔버들라 자왈래 당버들 자왈래
Oh, good.
그래서래
Google 청청 책들.
자왈래서 셈제 남제 레네 점 셀로냠도 삼나야 펜도 삼바 당데데 소남 밤에 된조나 셈제 레레 미데와 빠도 메바 센데체 레레 윤데 밤에도 어서 주바도바 메지고서
And so that in relation to the first point here, the incredible benefits that accrue through the limitless actions of virtue. And so here, verses 21 and 22 are looking at that. And they state, if even the thought to relieve living creatures of merely a headache is a beneficial intention endowed with infinite goodness, then what need is there to mention the wish to dispel their inconceivable misery, wishing every single one of them to realize boundless good qualities?
어디다 로 셈제 남제 다 셈제 남제 이제 레바가 나서 잡다 레베가 다 지금 강에 요바 소리서 레베 내서 레네 소리지 않은 생각 강에 가리나 레네 점 레네데 어서 레네 아무 다 권나게 동에 대점 세워도 다 된도 권나게 동에 세워도기 섬자 되네 섬을 깨봐 이나야 아니 제 팽이 빠도 매봐 준거 여러 봤어 너도 삼나야 될라되네 팽이 빠도 매봐 셀 펜토베 삼바 대점 템바데 아니 가서 지금 팽이 빠도 매봐지 연구 여래서 대바 손은 빠도 매봐 템바 주나 된데 손은 빠도 매봐 템바 주나 다 셈제 레레 다 셈제 장게 말려 봐 셈제 레레네 아니 다 미대와야 배 장래 미대와 다 그러다 미대와 빠도 매봐 세와 되진 아니 셈제 레레네 아니 배 산제가 윤데 다 타예봐 무 매봐 줘라 산제가 윤데 빠도 매봐 대봐 안 되대 아니 셈제 레레네 줘봐 되긴 게 아니 손은 타예봐 타예봐 요봐 여봐 되게한테 다 손음 제부 다 비다고 연주 다 줘봐서 몇 주고 셔버와 다 간자 대야 뒤주 통통 지켜봐 개반에 개봐 봐도 산제 고마 마토고 봐도 왔다 간자 셈제 레레게 동에 레레네 미도바 레레네 매봐 되대 그러와 아니 타바다 산제게 연대 레레네 아니 마성와 매봐 되대 안 뭐다 되게 아니 셈제 타여봐 아니 동에 타여봐 산제가 윤대 타여봐 다 망보지라 때네 다초 타여봐 사이 받다 다 셰먹어서 주로다 어디서 어디 다들
And so here the comparison is made in between, say, the mindset who is really wishing that all sentient beings could be free from, say, a mere headache, and that how wonderful such a thought would be, and that and you could see the limitless benefits that could accrue from having such a thought like that. It's really a very meritorious thing to do. But say when you actually are thinking about really relieving the unpleasantness or the unhappiness or the suffering of each and every sentient being, and wanting to establish them all in the kind of like the boundless qualities of enlightenment, and that having that desire, you can see that no need to mention the inconceivable merit that could accrue from that. So it's really looking into the kind of like the, how you say, the importance of the size of the motivation, taking into account like the countless number of sentient beings, the countless sufferings that they are undergoing, and the countless good qualities of enlightenment. And so it's saying this massive capacity of motivation that's been applied here is again comparable to the inconceivable limitless merit that would accrue from engaging in that kind of thinking.
what much course was it? Then Niba Dela Habe Payunes, Niba Dele Habe Payu, Shemebanis, Shemeban Zawale, Palm, Yana Maya room, Sula Tende, Pesimju, Hata Jansun, Namjaru, Tambalaya, Deyutams.
The next outline was that there is no more beneficial mind. And verse number 23 reads, do even fathers and mothers have such a benevolent intention as this? Do the gods and sages? Does even Brahma have it?
Palm, Rala said Dilas Chashawana, the Pama. Mrs. Archibald, but Mrs. Getchimbo. And the Pame winner in by Nata, so Pugula, Pancho Toro Java in Nata, Kari in a pen talk something, Tendegi, some da Kulum, Mrs. Buta Yorba, Topa Yomari. Pama Suing by Tapama, Tanga Mena, mental problem unit, Nizu Logariment, Timena, that's so Pugulata, Yakshut is yet to Yorata, Yakshut. Himba ina ta ngozu yongda ta ton de dro pam yana maya ro sula de ta dende gi ta pembe sama sanje ko ma ko gi sangwe ta pa ma ta ko ju ro ro re ta re ka zo sanje gi yuen de ko na ta ma cha ma shin ge de ta de ta ko mong be ko ra ko de samlo de ta ma shin be ong ge ma shin be mong be ong ge an samlo ko tu go yo ma ro che ta de shin ge yuen na ta yin de me pa ma gi ji ge to ba yo ma re ina ta mobile single yo marwa pawe no mai ro de sula semje tamje je sanje ge sanje ge dewa cho tomna nyambe asa dende pensem kala yute melasta melas der mase ane jiga jiga da jiga den da betabel hat da zol hat ane dembar mawe changson jiga so da kanje jiga so da re da tembar me changson tende ge namjang rong se rong re rong cheme ba cheme shila nebe asa ta changba la yang pesem de yodam chi yorbe yodam chi cheba osa yorbe sta peche ta re ta kaburwa re oder su yor oder cha.
So it's here saying, like, you know, that is wonderful as the motivations for parents is for their children, and that goes without question that it is a wonderful motivation in general, unless the parents are kind of mentally challenged, that generally speaking, that parents have the best possible intentions for their children. They want them to be the best they possibly can, and it's a marvelous thing. But you know, in comparison to wanting to benefit all sentient beings, to relieve the suffering of each and every sentient being, and to establish each and every sentient being in happiness, there's no comparison. And it's you know, it's kind of saying that there's no kind of capacity there. Of course, there is the capacity for parents to have that, so for anybody to have that motivation. It's simply that they just because of an unknowing and not knowing, and that certainly if they are made aware, that parents could live that life as well. And that, but it's saying in this comparison, there's no comparison to the best they can be as parents and the motivation here that we're talking about. And that's the same. Similarly, it's going for the deities and the worldly deities and the sages who speak truth, or even Brahma, who abides in the meditation of the four immeasurables. We ask, do they have that motivation? Do they have that extent of motivation for their practice and their activities to really want to eradicate the suffering of each and every sentient being, to establish each and every sentient being in perfect happiness? The answer is no, they don't have that motivation.
그때 여바이나 다这个 치료바 속에 안에 직장 창배 거에서 그 여봐. 건가 창박을 쇠에서 아니 창배 그 산제 쇠샤 되는 그때 여바이나 저 창바 직대 제보보 있으라 직대 제보보 창바 직대 건가 창배 제보를 쓰고 여봐. 그때 상박의 sem제 탐제 안에 산제 고마를 그에 되바 연하다 안디도 제 코아바 마서 저는 산계 쇠샤 되는
So again, I was saying, in relation to Brahma, of course, is considered as the creator of the gods, and so if he had the mind of enlightenment, then he wouldn't have seen it necessary to even create cyclic existence. He could create just enlightenment from the get-go.
What did I check that? 이름이 어떤 데서도 다들 내 임바인자 아니 지금 가서 된대게 다 같이 저 어스코를 멤버 sem제 탐제도 산제 고마 돈돈이 로 된다 잡에 빼면서 자치 뭐 다도 수고 여러 빼다 rindan 대와 공부 임바 어떻게 쳐. 다 숨바 sem제 남라 된대 펜 된다에서 펜서 랑돈도야 마게 봐다. 자발레 sem제 대다 니랑은 란지던도 된데서 밀람도야 마베네 생기던도 칼라케스.
And so, in brief, what this verse is pointing out is simply just how precious the mind of enlightenment is, the aspiring mind of enlightenment. It's really something which is priceless and also rare. I think it's really demonstrating that. So the third of these this little section of subheadings was saying that if one doesn't even generate this beneficial mind for oneself, then how can we be expected to generate it for all living beings? And the root text clarifies this. It says, if those beings have never before even dreamt of such an attitude for their own sake, how would it ever arise for the sake of others?
다 sem제 대단일라 대다라 뭐 랑게 된다 뭐다 저 랑게 된다 소소 된다야 아니 저 산제 고마 더구도 코알레 제구도 초아삼을 요마봐 일람도냐 마비나 아니 셴게 된다 아니 타이바 맞아 sem제 탐제게 된다 다 뭐서 갈게 되게 요요 말스게 셔서
So this is quite self-explanatory, saying that for a person who previously hasn't even for their own sake generated such a beneficial mind, even in their own dreams, haven't kind of come up with the idea of wanting to attain enlightenment just for themselves, then how is it going to kind of be generate? How is it going to foment in their own minds, this notion of really working to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, to relieve the suffering of all sentient beings, to establish them in all happiness? How is this ever going to arise in their own lives?
나기 기부 담아서 또 마샤자 토바 다 아니 다 기부 담아서 마마테이나 아니 저기 란첸스가 샤와도 존네 샤완 존네 셴진데 가고 지나 나라도 제일 잠바도 제와도 또또 연구돼 이내 네가 란 김제도 제일 연구도 예 저거 예 빈자 예 보고 예 파마스 란 김제도 제일면도 아니 어디 란다 제와 약부 유배 김제 란다 제와 약부 맞죠 인간에 쇼가 제와 제사네 니고 절로 제와 기도면 도 뭐다 간제 지금 나라도 탐내어 줘다데 된대치래도 와 로아 대화 되어봤다 동네 밑에봐 좀센도 제네 아니 저와 기근데도 공부를 와다 대군에 전에 양답에 또봐 아니 지금 덤백이 아니 저 가서래 다 같이 저 셰랍레 중화지 레도 와 셰랍레 중화지 레도 뭐 나라도 랑은 누가 당화지 레문도 와 지당 가서 저 저와 잡아다 닝제도 저와 요래 디펜도 요래 얘네 디 저와 디 가서래 되차다 제외 저와치 저 랑김제도 전에 용되게 차되기도 왔다 근데 저 셰김제 디는에 대화 되게 동네 밑에봐 김제도 전에 아니 저와게 되지 뭐 다 대화 되게 동네 밑에봐 김제도 전에 저와게 거도나 제 저와데 소설로 되게 잘해 있게 두고도 와 가서 소소로 내바기가 이마이네 디 대화도지 동에 밑도바 레데어 딜레된 자와게 투에 주나 아니 좀 센데 때문에 자와들이도
So in relation to this, we talk about the Buddhas and the holy beings and so on, and that in spite of their examples, their wonderful teachings and so on, that we are still how much dominated by our own self-cherishing, and how rarely does a genuine mind to cherish others arise for us. And we have to take this into account, that they're very much that we're kind of still mired in this sense of all for me, my friends, my relatives, my child, and my this and my that. Kind of like really the and even that, like you can see how fragile the connections we have are because of that. Our motivations are extremely compromised, very mixed up in our intentions. That the person who we were friendly with in the morning can be an arch enemy by evening, etc., etc. And that still we recognize that we want happiness and we don't want suffering in the same way all sentient beings want happiness and don't want suffering. But we can see how almost powerless we are to do anything about that. Yes, we have a measure of love, we have a measure of compassion, we have some kind of seed of good qualities, but we're so much kind of like mixed up in all our intentions with desire, with attachment. It's very much part and parcel of even the good actions we do. And so it's kind of like you see that there's a dire need for a kind of a wisdom that is kind of like a thing above all that, being able to take all of that into consideration and then revisit this notion of everybody wanting happiness and nobody wanting suffering. And that, kind of like really live your life according to that. Even the enemy who is harming you is doing so because they want happiness and doesn't want suffering. So there's nobody that sits outside of that category. So everybody wants happiness, nobody wants suffering. And you're kind of like really trying to focus your mind on just working for all because of that, just because of that.
샬라 펜도 제와 아니 사제 고마 두게 좀제 소데 대와 되게 두게 믿어봐 디 좀제도 제와 이나 아니 술라 이네야 니지게 되게 국가 비어딩게 아니 라는 내가 개바 이나 내가 개바 딜라 때네 랑기 닝제디 단도 국가 비어딩게 그래서 그 대화 되어봤다 동에 믿어봐 단도 대대어와 그 좋대요 말와 뭐다 뒤에서 뭐 닝제디 좀제 양다발 때니 개와 차도 소소다 저와 야보유가 좀 생겨 이제 개와 있나 아니 그 저와 그도 내 교와 대도해지와 아니 그 이제 대 교와 대도해지와
So it's pointing out here that in contrast to this verse, we need to really live by this valid reasoning of all sentient beings wanting happiness and nobody wanting suffering. And that's all of which follows from that. The benefit that we can give, the compassion we generate, the love we can generate, the attainment of enlightenment. It's all kind of follows from that simple basic reasoning that that's all we need. All sentient beings want happiness. Nobody wants suffering. And so this means that whoever we're encountering, we try to be of benefit to them because everybody wants happiness, nobody wants suffering. And then those who cause us harm, that's our opportunity to bring out our compassion, to see where our compassion lies. Because why? That person doesn't want suffering and wants happiness. And so this is the only reasoning that's necessary for us. If we kind of like fracture that reasoning into only applying it to those with whom we have a good connection, then that fractures our capacity for compassion and love as well. Because if the circumstances of that connection change, then of course our attitude changes too. So we want a situation, a category of understanding between ourselves and all other living beings, whereby our attitude doesn't alter at all, because we believe in the reasoning that all living beings want happiness and don't want suffering.
What did they say? I don't know. Pembe samba kene. I need to pembe samba kene ta. Till never saw in them chicken man. Some chicken man. We should do some now. We some gune and until pentoba chicken. Something kulonke. And it Garanzo let them go. Momba Marik be can't there. Then they by insa. Mashe mombe oge never young. Misiba Mari. Getting never to join in by in never same de la pebe juri joashos. Pebe juri joashos. What the summertime to get you? What Marazu Kunona de la pebata, and we should use on a pebble to be is. Yina ya, a caprica another mombe onge, Mashiba onge, Marazu. Because the never taking mess and ranching a new to the leg of the new to the young Misiba Maria. That the day is a great Mumbai never in by night, never to join, but never till a pantoy can't do a shows. Yeah, the niggas some of tangent and got a social payment some of the end, that's what they compared to Joya. Never should check the Joya. What is sometimes they get money, buddy.
And so when we talk about this kind of beneficial thinking, it's the motivation whereby we kind of say, I will never engage in any harm. I will try to both directly and indirectly be of benefit wherever I possibly can. And so, but also I recognize that even as a beginner, as I am, I'm kind of like beset by ignorance. And so even though I have this beneficial kind of intention, motivation, that even in my acts of trying to benefit, sometimes harm will come about. And so I pray also, as part of my motivation, that that maybe that can be seen, that will become an actual conducive condition for a benefit, for a more beneficial benefit, for a more powerful benefit. And that, I understand that as pure as my motivation may be, to never harm, to always benefit, that due to karma and so on, and may be unavoidable, that I will engage in harm. But may that simply be a conducive condition for my further benefits, to transform that into something which is beneficial for the other.
What did it watch Chevaina? And it coach the Chevaina, and he had Gansa Delatene, Sabe Leg, but the Ongi, so the Pento in the never Julo to the Yungu into, and he did let get Dartoyeta. And it Mahobala Mutu and let the leg, but the Mutu no Mayo at the Tendeg and Pento Yungua, Pento Yungre. What that is was some look at Chom would get the Tang Mashiba in a consumption. Churching the Pentochigo in a church name, Toto Tusho to the Yungurwa. That the name is a chalk Gane in there and Gawa to get the two more short to it. Tolamon watch to it. What did get me in what
And so then we dedicate, whatever virtue that we can accrue in that way. And then, also to be able to understand too that when we proceed with such a noble motivation, and to do our very best to avoid all harm and to take every opportunity to benefit, and we make these mistakes and counter difficulties and so on, that the motivation itself is kind of a purifying force for those karmas that arise in that way. And that they also, like as we habituate more and more to acting, on the back of this kind of motivation, then these kind of like obstacles or untoward events will kind of reduce, will be less likely to kind of become a big obstacle on our roadway. And so it's kind of really thinking about this from so many different angles, that we can purify, kind of refine our motivation as well, and to kind of like see that the kind of the validity of really trying to establish this kind of beneficial thinking as our go-to thinking in every possible situation is going to really stand to us, is going to be really beneficial for us.
다 시바 죽도도 나과데 자왈레 현다 란제 돈도야 미중 셈제 돈셈칸 스템데 렌체 케바데 나는 메베 매치 총자.
And so the fourth of this bunch of subheadings was this praise in conclusion. And so we're looking at verse number 25 in this respect, where it says, this intention to benefit all beings, which does not arise in others, even for their own sake, is an extraordinary jewel of the mind, and its birth is an unprecedented wonder.
다 셈제 현다 라 란제 돈도야 계제자 대인결 쇼레 계제자야 데데 셈 기만요 셈 그 계제자 무슨 미중에 셈제 탐제도 산제 어느 톰되게 셈 자주가 자주오사 셈바 가시기 귤라 가시 귤라 다 수이나야 대귤라 셈제 렌체 캐도 파바데 나는 매베 매도 줘 뭐사와 지 충분들라 뭐사와 손에서 다 뭐사와 손에 아니 데 배고서 스타디 개발을 배주치고로 스페인 배고서 샤보고자.
So again, you know, this wonderful mind that has not to benefit all sentient beings, which does not arise in others even for their own sake. This desire to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, this mind of enlightenment, that for the Bodhisattva, on whose kind of continue this motivation exists, you know, say this is something which is like something which is so precious, in a kind of like a superior gem. That which is an unprecedented wonder that has arisen, you know, something that could be regarded like that as absolutely precious, priceless, and that it's because of this, because of it being such a wondrous thing, it shouldn't we really make every effort to generate this in our own mind stream.
그래도 앞에는 나라서 수인바이네 소소소소를 제와 매gen 수강 요말 소소소소를 빼 제와 친구 요래 근데 인바이자 소소소소 동에 뭐돼 대화 주위에 채도 배준 지금 요다 배준 지금 요다 다 줍신다 마신스데 권내줄로 가지와 줍신 마신스 내줄로 가지래 아니 레데 이나야 관계 배준 지금 요다 소소 대화세에 대화 주위에 동네세에 안데 뭐가 변한 뭐도 야가 공가지네 뒤주 개박이 어느 소소라 지금 가리톤에 동에 요바도 매마서 답지 가리톤에 대화 요바도 줍다지 지금 얼어봤다 공가차로 지금도서는 아니 지 공가차도 거에 둘로 야가도 둘로 부소소다 둘로 더 투가 비다가도 야가야 둘로 투부 건 투고 말아 잡자죠 자 소소라 지금 뒤시게 좋아질래 안들라 법에 둘로다 아니 사야 통해다 이거 최대 삼었던 거를 가서 소소라 자와 유사 제대로 열봐 제거 열봐 이나야 나라도라 제와 열대 이네 제와데 지금 제와데 가서다 다 체주봐 인상 아니 그 뭐이 내주디 신의 체주봐 인상 아니 그 나라도 제와데 뭐지 누가 좀 보면 다 근데 그 개세 단위 전부 중에 제와데 아니 뭐요 그 내주 킨거 여봐 인상 나라도 저 코에게 내다데 찾아와서 권하서 킨거 여봐 인상 아니 딜레 타네 타와 지금 아니 가서도 다저 타바다 탐지 개별 공부하지 마토바 나다다 쇠 마토바지 다 권하서 저거 동네도 못 쳐고 요바인데 안자와 현답니다 나라도 자와래 나라도라 아니 계속 다니 전부 다 산제도 잔주 서바 속에 아니 자와 자주 동주게 쳐 용대 뭐요 근데 저 신마신 돈을 차오라 다들 이마서 나라도 뭐요 근데 저 신고했다 개심버다 뭐요 근데 저도 딱 나라도 코알 나대봐 임바디 시에 아니 딜레 타이가 탑이었다 매데 시에 아니 딜 탑이 탑 초도 주바데 가임바 시에 아니 라라랑 자와 제디 개심버데 자와 제네 편도 제데 아니 랑 진짜가 전에 제국도에 신 진짜가 전에 제국도 디양 뭐요 근데 저다 투마 시에 진짜 마시마 이나 라라 자와 지금 요때 아니 자와 되게 yawa yunguina, dunga yunguina, ta shema tuwa chayde, nesu di chabarwa.
So for whoever we are referring to, that everybody kind of holds their life as that which is their most precious thing. They hold on to that more than anything else, of course. This goes without saying, and that you know, all of the kind of the happiness and suffering that is endured is in one way or another to sustain that life, and the effort that we make, you know, kind of like constantly adjusting and refining the objects of use that are ours, the timing and all that of when we do it. For example, you know, the differences between how we behave in the summer and winter. In winter, we need to have, of course, adequate clothing to keep ourselves warm. The food that we might eat, diet that we might, you know, eat is changed, it's refined and adjusted accordingly. Because we don't want to experience the sufferings of winter, we don't want to experience the happinesses. And when it comes to summer, we discard these kind of heavy clothing, and that we change our diet, we change our attitude. We want to kind of have some time off and so on to relax in the sun, etc., etc. All of these activities, countless activities, countless adjustments in our activities, is all for the sake of our wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. And this is all very fine, you know, that's what we eat and drink and so on. And so this is related to, you know, the kind of love that we have for ourselves, and that can be somewhat genuine, of course, but it is a very limited kind of attitude, a very limited kind of love. That when we look into what we're talking about here in these verses, this the being who is referred to as a child of the conquerors, you know, that one who sees actuality, by meaning they really, really see the state of cyclic existence, this place in this reality in which we are caught and trapped. They really see that for what it is, in the nature of suffering, and they, on the basis of that understanding, they develop this desire to attain liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment, and really see that actually this is something that must be done, that there is no choice anymore in the matter, that you know, their eyes have been opened to see the reality of the way things are, and therefore it kind of really focuses their mind and say, I've got to attain enlightenment. I've got to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And that love, you know, is that love at that point is so much greater than the love that we have even for ourselves, thousands of times more powerful and more all-encompassing, more meaningful. And so this is really this seeing of reality, the seeing of the state of the state of cyclic existence itself, and really understanding, you know, the part played by our own self-cherishing in keeping us trapped and mired in that state, and then the benefits of cherishing others, just that releasing kind of element or force of being able to just cherish others, and the reasoning behind that, and the reasoning behind, you know, being able to meet all instances of happiness and suffering in the same way by seeing them as conducive conditions for practice and so on, and to kind of only differentiate it in that sense. And so it's kind of like really this person who has really seen the actuality of things. This is the way things are, you know. I'm in the suffering state of cyclic existence, even for my own sake, to attain liberation from that, or for the sake of all living beings, to attain enlightenment for that, is just such an amazing jump, you know, for motivation and for mindset and for lifestyle, that kind of anything we can think of in relation to our own happiness pales in significance.
What about some kid, which gets about what some Kevala, Tabuko Neta Yabusingo, and Koe Netan Yabusine, and it's a Koe Tungeta, Mozogela Lamrita in the Lamrina Tunga, Tunga, Chaba to Chego Tunga. 다 디나네 차바 두제가 동에게 아니 교회데 야고 마신 바이나 코에 님이 통통 말해 코에 님이 뒤다고 토마토와 이나 아니 딜라 타베 다되게 두고 말해 그와 다되게 두고 말와 아니 다가내 생게 저거 와다 되는데 아니 코에 님이 야고지 심바이나 아니 디 동에게 나왜 가살라 닝제데 닝제 뒤다가 용도 그래 닝제 띵사바 용도 그래 다 그래서 아니 되네 다 가서다 코에 동에 나와라 아니 편바 두에디 아니 가자 감담메와 발라냐와 지다와 신도 집에 돈에 편바 두고 그요도 아니 산제 고마 마도나 탐메게 통 그래 아니 대통도 아니 샘제 탐제 아니 동에 나와 미소바 닌제도 여차도 아니 대화의 된도다 동에의 된도도 여차도 아니 되는 다 대두에 두가도 소저 두고 매바 다 두투에 니와도 술라도도 다 샘제도 토이게 라라로 고마서 산게 바틸라 투서 아디 고마마도 탐도 서다 지금 뭐유게 내주다 심에 토네 아니 그 두다리 시험구와 두다 시험구래 어디서 내가 전부 차대도 내가 전부 차대도
So it begins, of course, doesn't it, with a good understanding of a cyclic existence, of really seeing that it is in the nature of suffering. And as we found out in the graduated path teachings, the kind of three sufferings that dominate there: the suffering of change, and pervasive suffering. And particularly that third one of pervasive suffering, of seeing the workings of cyclic existence itself, seeing the fault, the major faults and the myriad faults of cyclic existence, because without that, we're not anyway motivated to do anything about it. Particularly, we're not motivated to strive to gain liberation from cyclic existence. And so it's very important that we kind of understand that. Then to understand also how, any individual person is also kind of in that same situation. They are in that state of suffering. They're in that state where the suffering is inevitable for them. And so we must use that then to generate compassion for the sentient beings who are caught in that, and that understanding, like then asking the question, how can I really do something meaningful about that? Or what is the most meaningful thing I can do to relieve that suffering, to benefit sentient beings? And that asking the question, who, from what point of view, can one be of that best benefit? And the answer is from the point of view of enlightenment, of attaining that state of enlightenment. And so therefore, we be able to understand that. But it begins with really establishing, all sentient beings want happiness and no one wants suffering. And it's kind of like really understanding that really promotes our actions thereafter. This ability to kind of see the key issue, and therefore that pushes us to train on the path, and that leads to the attainment of the result of enlightenment. But it begins with the reality of the situation, of seeing the reality of the situation. We see then what needs to be done, and they begin to do it.
다 샘데 짜체 무소네 아니 샘디 게답지에 아니 무투네 네답지에 아니 어딘데 좀 다간제 지금 어디래 다간제 지금 아직 가서래 거두이네 다간제 지금 가서대 지금 쇼게 야랑바데 관다가 마냐가 파도 아니 지금 샘데 게바테 아니 수접지에 아니 딜라테네 아니 가서 샘디 심베토네 아니 개와두에 아니 샘디 심베토네 동해 중간에 대화 중간에 되게지 아니 샘디 개베게 가서 샘디 공배도에 탑을 배주다에 이 순접지에 디 탑을 배주다에 와다데 중앙이나 아니 미지데 다 된다 대바 차버려 아니 베나차차는 거지 인더스트리드 베나 차차는 거지 인더스트리드 베나 차차나 매 종사실 레바이나 어때 케미스트리 도가를 약말도 베나 지금 말아주다 지금 디나네 상하고 최도스 켈링이 요래 아니 내가 산제 메라 켈링이 요래 아니 데레주도 아니 디가서데 디반 남게텔라 산제 메라 콤 아니 매래 차 후세네 뒤에 교육 법전 아니 되게 매가 되게 매 차장의 징글랍수 삼자 징글랍수 삼자 삼로다 아니 뒤 론체게 다 가서 소리는 네들에 타와 네뒤 중에게 자와 아니 단지 말이 받아 다음에 또 단지 말이 받아 아니 저거 란체진이 아니 시와 제와쇼 시와 제와 교류 도와쇼 어디가 삼로다 굴로추야 아니 한테 말지 저야 갈 삼자 가서다 두초들 레고다 시미터리스래 두초 아 된다 레바갈야 가서다 상계 좀 되대 검대 천대 간제 그 풍부 배나 뒤쯤에 심제 천대 까지 요바다 나다 감도 저어리도 간 제조수도 동을래 제대 아니 된저고 루된 게 봐쇼 특바치 비계회 신이다 제봐쇼 제자 사주 랑가도 산제 고마 토바쇼 오간자 거뒤이네 오다 된대 지금 삼리 찌스 봐 아니 심제 수리 투와이네 대다 탐제 아니 지금서 심제 탐제 산제 고마 주고서 오다 딘주체도 주고 있으고 요래서 못 쳐바친 오다 내전에 다 주고이나 아니 랑게 냠네데 아니 귀다도 다도 주고 와 아니 거뒤이네 개와 사투에서 와
So, and the trick is, of course, to be able to kind of have this mindset present in our thinking all the time, as much as we possibly can. And so it's kind of like here to be in our kind of quiet, more inactive moments to reflect on this mind, to generate this mind, to really kind of delve into the significance of this mind of enlightenment as much as we possibly can. And that's from morning, the moment we get up in the morning to the time we go to bed at night. We do this kind of review and reflect on how the day went. To what extent were my actions motivated by the mind of enlightenment? To what extent did I generate this attitude to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings? And to really look after the extent to which you have generated that mind, to protect it, and then also to really try to set yourself for the following day to improve that, to make that motivation more ever present in your following day. And so it's kind of a really kind of like to be able to spot the opportunities throughout the day where you can apply that mindset, that beneficial mindset as well, whatever suffering arises, whatever happiness arises, that we see it as an opportunity to apply the mind of enlightenment, to generate further the veracity of that intention in our mindset, and sort of like really that is an excellent way of making this life meaningful. For example, if you went to the chemist, the chemists and those who are working in those situations and so on, who have some faith in the Buddha, have an understanding of the medicine Buddha, for example, can visualize the medicine Buddha above with the special medicinal, a bowl filled with medicinal nectar. And that nectar flows out into all of the medicine being sold in that chemist, in that pharmacy. And that furthermore, that anybody who's partaking of that medicine, that they are not only their illness is benefited or is eradicated, but also it deals with the imprints of self-cherishing, self-grasping in their own mindset as well. And really visualize that, to see that is actually occurring, and that they are benefited in some really powerful way because of this blessed medicine. And so it's and if we're at the cemetery, for example, passing the cemetery or in the cemetery, to try and use that as well to meditate, visualize Buddha Shakyamuni Buddha, and that and visualize all the 6 realms of existence, in either buried in that cemetery or living in the cemetery, and that that may they be able to avoid any rebirth in any of the suffering realms, and to attain a precious human rebirth, to meet with a qualified Mahayana teacher, to be able to proceed along the paths and grounds to enlightenment, to really have that as a very strong motivation for us, and to kind of like really be absolutely sure that your practice in that point or at any point is fully dedicated for others, for the sake of others, for the sake of others' happiness, and for the sake of relieving the suffering of other sentient beings. And in this way, we accumulate this virtue on a daily basis. Can be extremely wonderful for habituating the mind in the right way. Very powerful practices to do.
What the shopping center the Kawaii, and shopping center Dungin Nangala, and because of the Tomashaja to set up, and then you also take it, but to make you want about 2 hours, Ishiba Chanta, Tim. What the legend we should show something, and it didn't to be put on the Tuzipam, and it got Saya, Toya Kari, and a ticket to Zipa, and to look at it, so long Java in a Tetagi, and Nega with Takaja, Tungesa, Tadu, and it Tunga said to it, and you were Kabachi to something. What did they go on journey? Chegina, Rala, Toson, maybe at one, Sherman would took to yet. Jamba the Ninja compared to yet. And the same day, Sugu launch did the same day to the Jawasha to yet. What are the Kebat in the USA? And this in the Kochu, this was to do some of Tangmata, to some kind of Minduka. Some of Chome, what was the Mabutangi? Mabutangi, that is subject, and there's some of those down to enough. And it pay up with this, what in the chat.
And likewise, in a shopping center, should we find ourselves shopping, and that we can again visualize in space in front the figure of Buddha Shakyamuni Buddha, and that marked by the syllables Ah Hung and use the descending nectar light meditation coming from the Hung, and indeed Ah as well, and that's descending all over the shopping center, entering into all the items of edibles and clothing or any other items. In relieving, all temporary and ultimate problems, and establishing all temporary and ultimate happiness, and to have that kind of motivation is wonderful in a scenario like that. It's of no cost to ourselves, that we can generate the mind of enlightenment, the love, compassion, and connection with all other sentient beings. All it costs us is time, and it's free, and so we should certainly be kind of really try to adjust our thinking in this way, since we in general we do waste a great deal of time anyway, don't we?
Shopping center coffee tea tongja and the summer time dead. Oh.
And so as Ken was saying, just to think about going out to the shopping center and having your coffee, and while you're having your coffee, just thinking like this with the Buddha, dispelling the blessings and dispensing all the blessings to everything and everyone in the shopping center. How good is that? How happy would that be?
Yeah, what did channel? Kuka Mambuyor, Kuka Marchen and Tagarwa, Kuka Mambuyor. What are the Jup to Bacheva, and Toson Yomare, Kaya Yomare, and so the same keep the Togre, Chula Jutogre, and Sanjay Jula Totoga, and the shot.
So we have to see this, that how many opportunities are available to us throughout any given day, and so to be able to take these opportunities, to be able to establish the mindset that's being advised here makes our life happier, and that it's kind of like free for us. We are kind of engaging in the Dharma. We're accumulating virtue. What else do we need?
Yeah. Tagadish did it up in a Chamjang Dosa Devala, water, chu, what chu. Chamjam Dosa than the chu cast water supply.
Water supply or waterfall?
The water that should cash. What are the day Chamjang did come to us together? Duncan Nagar Sangu did the come. And she won't about to go on the Shinra Shiba Chena. was going to Sanje to the show something, and to be cool to the children, and the children my team just choose so long Javina, choose Toina, should the Latin long pond the solar power in the time jacket, and it because of the lane was a dependent on my tower show something. And the Tagadi and it did launching and Ganga, and it because of that, because of the Tanzimari ranches, Tanzimari was she was short, she was to a shows, Sanjay renewed the 7 shows. What the nigga some of Tanjan, what the day some of Tantia, what up? You will love Chambasatu. You will love Chambasatu. And Johnson Yamari, Kiwi Yore, Chamyam de Chamyam meaningful Chagri.
Another example is going to say we're going for a walk, and to make that as meaningful as possible. You know, if we happen upon any kind of water source, be it a waterfall or a stream or anything else, and that to visualize again the figure of the Buddha marked by the Hum. And again with the nectar light descending, transforming that water source to something which is really powerful, so that anybody who drinks of the water, any being who touches the water, or even the wind, and passing through that water, that it, whoever it touches, that it again relieves those beings of the suffering that they are undergoing, and indeed also works on the imprints to their self-grasping and self-cherishing mindsets, so that they are kind of alleviated from those pernicious attitudes, and just making it as beneficial as possible to make our walk that meaningful, to turn it into a source of powerful virtue and benefit for others. And so let's leave it there for today.
Yeah, that rang doing the top to some Tomasha to set over there, and the rang jewel, Pema, the Nimad and David, some and the chant and Pandita, with Tagichu up in the Kurdish Kuzu to Mudu status, so that Tambekos of Pet, Nibekos of Shoe, some Bekos of Tension, Sanjay Kuamato with the chest so Kubasha.
And so then to conclude, we again bring our focus to the figure of Shakyamuni Buddha, of the one who is skilled in means and greatly compassionate in the space in front of us, and that we start to prepare our invitation seat on our crown with the lotus sun and moon disc mandala seat, and then to utter the invocation verse, O glorious and precious Root Guru, come take your lotus and moon seat placed here on my crown, keep me safe in your kindness, bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. And with that recited thrice at the end of the first recitation, the figure moves from the space in front. At the end of the second, they have come to take their seat on our crown. And at the end of the third, we feel that they are established there wonderfully until we attain the state of enlightenment. And that's something worth rejoicing in.
Anything Yala to be maintained that Chaza was the church, Chesu the judge was Tapani Yala to be maintained the Cheva, Pune, and such person was either good and the entire mess. What I Yala to be maintained the Cheva Put, then a dragging the Pamata Bechela Chuso, some such a did that when you mother David some Takanja. Nenju jasa yanta be tawa chede suracha ane dena pade chawe la mar be tagi ninga pe me de kare kusu do ngur cha so de chen ta be kasu ma cho ni be kasu sho sumbe kasu te do sho sanje ko ma to be che so kawa ko dena ni de na bin rang ning ne tan de shin ne de ka de to ji ka ba chang ba chenga chi ke kha che ane dena ta ka cha Dumbe Changa Taito Munimums Taito Munimus Taito Munus Tene Kotik, Tene to Omtaritus, Satene, Tenenga Yeta Maheto Tata Hordoma Shaman, so Tenenga Sung Kotik, what did the Chick
And then to, of course, then establishing that same seat from our reflections on renunciation, the lack of objective existence and the mind of enlightenment in turn, we established the lotus, the sun and moon disc mandala seat at our heart, and then utter the invocation verse to invite the Buddha from our crown down. Again, thrice. Again, O glorious and precious Root Guru, come take your lotus and moon seat placed here at my heart. Keep me safe in your kindness. Bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. At the end of the first, the figure begins the journey down through our crown, down through our central channel. At the end of the second, arrives at our heart center on the pre-prepared seat. And at the end of the third, we have that certainty again that the Buddha will remain with us to look after us until we attain the state of enlightenment. That really brings a moment of joy to our minds. And then we see that the petals of the lotus fold over and are sealed at their tips by a 5-pronged white vajra. And then various mantras encircle that package, starting with the name mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha, and then the mantra of Omtare Tutare Soha in an anti-clockwise direction, and then the mantra of dependent origination. So it Omarapatsana, the mantra of wisdom, actually in an anti-clockwise direction, and then again in a clockwise direction, the mantra of dependent origination.
And there are running use of Tapja to the Tobasha Toba, use Nebatilla, Kusuntula, Vesetuna, Rangachibone, Kandi Palo Vesetuna, and Ranga Tomamas, Tibatakaja, Sojua, Majama Lamba, and it's Misawa Jova, Suyu Tomatsu Majan, Nasen, Lotala Sobeta, Sodaga Tobatakawa, Chajusaba Lava Dakawa, Sanga Tamzitakawa, that Donna. Chebe Kona Mato, the Rashi Kana Mato, Neva, Setila Saba, Dingama, Toma Mema Tiba, the Tiba, but Jansi Tabajusu, Samsa, Kumbashe.
Then from within the folded petals of the lotus, from the figure of Shakyamuni Buddha inside, light rays, countless powerful light rays emanate and permeate through the leaf. And through, in fact, every cell of our bodies, from the crown of the head to the soles of the feet, and they are purifying all the negativities that we have accumulated, be they from the 10 non-virtues of killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, of harsh speech, divisive speech, lying, and of idle gossip, of covetousness, malicious intent, and wrong view. All of the infractions to our vows and pledges that we have taken, from be it the Pratimokta vow sets, or the Bodhisattva vows, or the Tantric vows, all those times when we have contravened the kind of naturally occurring laws, or those instructions or kind of admonitions proscribed by the Buddha, and that we have, be it in this life, in previous life, in the life previous to that, going back to beginningless time, that all of those negativities have been utterly purified along with their imprints.
Rangi Jung the Pungote Casada Jungashiki, Jungashi do that, and Jungashi Koyno Manya, then Koyno, but Jungshi Komanya, but Koynoba, Za Long Tilly, Gönti, then Gönti get the Sanwa, Tagani Shingi, Takanja, Kasoda, Takanja, what is it, and Tagani Shingi, and this Kasoda, Nudo Sange, what Tobala, and Tamek and Nanshe, Mabashava, Tamena, she Gönti get the diet. Good that Rang look at Nasa Sem Dunga Carry of an Digger Shiva Jusu Sabsa. The church we kick it. Tagani and church touch about the new Saja Komato we kick into Tamena Nashi Göndan Kanataja, Tabalam Japashi. Tagani Shingi Kasoda Nyamba Shashi Bekane, Nyamba Shashi Bekane, Shendi Peme to the Tubati Sanjere. The day Sanjay and it was a gay, that because Sanjay Giga Takata, what a Takaja, Namba Shashi Bank and Shanti Pemelo to La Padu, Tipa the Tipa Career, so the Shetuga, Shetu Pasha the Javapa, Chang to a new Kamachi Josu, so what the commercial.
And that all the obstacles to our being able to engage in spiritual practice are completely purified and eradicated. Anything untoward that stands in the way or being able to fulfill the goal of attaining enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings is eradicated. Any imbalance in the elements of our body any impurities in there purified, and the imbalances now once again balanced. Again, with the infractions or impurities within our channels, winds and drops, and again, anything imbalanced there is further balanced. And they did this, the ordinary view that we are kind of mired with, that which kind of prevents our quickly being able to attain the state of enlightenment to benefit all sentient beings. That is eradicated. We no longer see like that or regard like that, and we see everything in its pure aspect. This is kind of relating to also the eradication of all the deluded obscurations in our own minds, and particularly the obscurations to omniscience, that which prevents us from actually attaining that state of enlightenment. They are also any obstacles to anything that is kind of capable of preventing us from ridding ourselves of those obscurations is also removed.
다기 신도 다 소소의 신도 저 룬데 녀랭게체 라마샤자세 꾸디 렌지 치긴체는 소소리의 라마샤자세 꾸를 주수 섭사자 소소 신도 저 셈데 녀랭게체 라마샤자세 그 투데 렌지 치긴체 소소 셈데 라마샤자세 그 투를 주 랑게 룽아 유소다 라마샤자세 그 꾸주도 뭐예매도 주수 소소 네디야 네 견 답제다는 라마샤자세 그시 다가자 다 시가소라 다 답시 노저 대화절라 소베 다시 시가도 주수서 고마시
And then through the combination of my own most subtle wind acting as the substantial cause, with the body of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own body is transformed into the enlightened body of the Buddha. And then through the combination of my own most subtle mind acting as the substantial cause, with the mind of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own mind is transformed into the enlightened mind of the Buddha. Now I see my own body, speech, and mind as inseparable from the body, speech, and mind of a Buddha. And that's also seeing myself as an enlightened being. And also the place in which I am living is now transformed into the palatial abode of an enlightened being.
다 라마샤자 생게 꾸르주에 투가레 습제다 단다냐바 외세 초발라 때는 다 냐와이다 두르미라 라마이라 소바테다 탐제 아니 고사다제 리조소소게 동엘레 때다 때다 라마샤자 생게 구소토도 뭐예메 차수 공바셰 안데다가 네데다 네기 견 탐제 단 아니 제가서다 다베시도 조소 삼사제 다 감소 선제 단제 다 라마선제 선제 꿀 주와다 샤자 선제 구소도 뭐예메 주와다 대주베초도 소소게와 가르투미메 대주가 소소의 제가 유대나 맞죠 똑바 파다 점제에서 디 대화제 대회 동바제 대도니스베 이시죠 소소 공부시.
And then through seeing myself as a fully enlightened being, I emanate rays of light equal in number to all the beings of the 6 realms of existence, from the hell realms, the asura realms, the animal realms, the hungry spirit realms, and the celestial being realms. That the light rays that I emanate upon touching all the beings in those realms, they are spontaneously arise as fully enlightened beings, and their place of abode also is transformed of all fault and is transformed into an enlightened abode of an enlightened being. And that having attained this, I kind of rejoice in the fact that not only now have I attained my own purpose in attaining the state of enlightenment, but the purpose of all sentient beings and leading them all to enlightenment. I reflect on that all those sentient beings, all the virtue that leads to that state, and indeed myself as the agent of such virtue, and I realized that they are absolutely empty of any objective existence and merely imputed by thought. That reflection brings forth a sense of bliss, which combines with voidness, and I abide in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness.
그래 다 단다다 묘바 이제 장게 삼로 당어르도 문에다 대대래라고 그네요 이내야 디 개와된데 사요 디 개와디 때네 다 뉴도 된대주 쪽에네 통계사 개개도 저 용화쇼 스타 뭐지 어디래.
And so, of course, we don't attain these capacities just like that. This is not only operating at the level of imagination now, but I am sincere in my dedication that it may quickly be made manifest, that this virtue that is for sure accrued may quickly lead to the state of enlightenment that I am imagining now, and that indeed along the way that all inconducive conditions may be eradicated and all conducive conditions to fulfill this may be established.
How can we see?
Vara of Lakshvara, great treasure of compassion, nodding the true existence, and Manjushri, master of flawless wisdom, as well as Vajrapani, destroyer of hordes of demons without exception, Tsongkhapa, crown jewel of the sages of the land of snows, Losang Drakpa, at your feet, I make requests.
Okay, Toche, Nol Toche, everyone.
Thank you very